Hello. Now I'm going to show you how I created this to-do list in which you can add new tasks and click on the button and it comes here, and if you click on the button delete, it disappears. And if I search something, only these two sentences remained which had the words do in them. So let's look what I did. Actually, I have three files: index.html, server.js, main.js. In my HTML file, I have two inputs. One of them for search and the other one is for save. Each of them has IDs and placeholder, which is for the first one it is search, and the second one it is add your tasks. You can see add your tasks and search. This placeholder is for this. Now also I have unordered list, which again has an ID. My unordered list is this tree. I have two buttons for search and for save. These are my buttons. Also, I put in my HTML file script files and a source attribute of script tags, which makes my work much more easier. So if I write my JavaScript and my HTML file in script tags, it will become more complicated, because I could not separate what is my HTML, what is my main code. So I did this way to make it easier to understand and to read my to-do list. We need to make a server. At the beginning of my code, I declared some variables which I will use later. Here I have to-dos, which is my data. I want it to be on the screen. My to-dos is an array of objects. Each of them has an ID, message, and boolean value. Here you can see match.random, which is a random number. It will give us a random number. Then I concatenated it with empty string, which will give us a string, not a number. So I don't want a number, I don't want a number, I want a string. Then this is an actual part of creating a server. This function creates a server, and in the end of my function of my code, I have server.listen to 3001. This 3001 is my port number. It is here. So if I replace it with something else, so 1452, it will give us nothing. So it listens only to 3001 because I wrote it in my code. Okay, fsread file reads the entire content of this file. This function has two arguments, error and data. If error occurs, which means that no file, there is no such file, at that time it's responsible by 404, which means that page not found. Else it's responsible by 200, which means that everything is okay, and it will give us our data. If my HTTP request method is equal to get, then request URL and request URL that index of ToDo's is equal to 0, which means that my URL starts with 0. Then I declared a variable local ToDo's is equal to ToDo's, and I set header with content type application JSON. Now I check if parse query dot search text means it means that my parse query is an object, and I want to know is in my object I have a search text. If I have, then I want to filter my local ToDo's with filter function. With function has an argument with which is object. It will put this filtered list to my ToDo's, and this filtered list will be the message of object, which index of parse query dot search text is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0. After that, I return JSON stringify local ToDo's. So if my search text does not exist, I don't need to filter my I don't want to filter my array. I can, without doing this process, I can come here and stringify my local ToDo's. If search text exists, I need to do this part. If my HTTP request method is post and my URL starts with ToDo's, I add data to my body, which is now empty, chunk by chunk. So I add data to my body chunk, and in the end of my request, I want to parse body because it came to the server as a string, so I want to parse it. JSON.parse body, and which is our JSON object. If we have JSON object.message, so if we have a message, then we give to it an ID, and we add it to this line means that we add this message to my ToDo's. Then again, I set header with content type application JSON and return to client JSON stringify ToDo's, and that's all. So if we do not have message, I just return. HTTP request method is delete, and again my URL starts with ToDo's, and my URL after ToDo's, I have an ID. My ID is after ToDo's. So the client sent me an ID, and I want to delete it. I for loop over all items and try to find the item with that ID which was sent from client. And if I find it, I remove it using splice, and if at remove and if I can remove it, I just write status code 200, which means everything is okay. If there is no such an item with an ID, we just return data was not found. Now my HTTP request method is put. And again, my URL starts ToDo's with ToDo's, and again my ID is in my URL after ToDo's. Now again we for loop over all items, and if we find an item with that ID which was sent from client, we just need to toggle the value of that item. For example, if it is completed, we just need to make it not completed. So this symbol means toggling. Then we return 200, which means everything is okay, and return successfully updated. If there is no such an ID, such an item with that ID, we just return data was not found and can therefore not be updated. So if we cannot find, we cannot update. Now we are in main.js. Const to-do list element is equal to this, which is my unordered list. As you remember from index.html, here is my unordered list, and the idea of that is this. So now I have a function row list, and then my constant search text is equal to search box.value, which is the value of my search box. Search text is a value of my search box. So if I write here go, the value of my search box is go. Okay. Here we have ajax, which is a function of object which takes as an argument an object URL, where it is the path, it is where we want to send our HTTP request. Type get, type of HTTP method we want to use, and a data type JSON is kind of data we expect back. Data search text, as I explained. A success, success. From the first we need to, as you see, I wrote here unordered list .html empty string. I want to remove my unordered list. Then I wrote a for each function, and for each li I have this to do input. Input type is checkbox, a message, and button for delete. My input property is ToDo item completed, which comes from server true or false. Here it is, all of them is false. Completed false. Okay, then I append this alias to my unordered list. So if I don't write this this line, I will get something like, if I search here do, I will get here another line Now do morning, for example. I will get another line which we can read do morning exercises for 2 times. Here we will have 4 lines. That's why we want to remove at first to remove all of them and draw only the sentence which has this in it. Okay. If we write something, for example, if I write what can I write? I will get nothing. Okay, adding tasks, we have add to do function. It has save text, which is save box value. Again, at first we have to have value of save box empty string. Again, we have ajax, which is a function and it takes as an argument an object. Now the type of HTTP request type is post. Here our data is has a message and completed. We want to stringify it because to send it to our server. Message is save text here, which is a value of our save box, and initially we have false because from the beginning we don't want to have our checkbox checked. We want it to be like this. That's why we wrote false. And if success occurs, we draw list and we call function with ToDo's and draw list. And if error occurs, we call function with data, with this data, and alert. HTTP request method is delete. And again, my URL starts with ToDo's, and my URL after ToDo's, I have an ID. My ID is after ToDo's. So the client sent me an ID, and I want to delete it. I for loop over all items and try to find the item with that ID which was sent from client. And if I find it, I remove it using splice. And if at remove and if I can remove it, I just write status code 200, which means everything is okay. If there is no such an item with that ID, we just return data was not found. For updating list, we again have a function to the item ID, which is almost the same as delete item function. The only difference is as the type. Here our HTTP request type is put, and also the difference is that here we wrote error deleting the item, here error updating the item. So the main difference are those two things. Here, if I click on search button, this function should be called. And if I click on save button, add ToDo function will start to work. And if I click on delete, the same thing, it will start to run this function. And if I click on my checkbox, my input, it is my checkbox. Again, I will update the list, which means this function will occur. That's all. Thank you. And my YouTube video description, you will find all this stuff. Thank you for attention. Bye.